Hi folks, and welcome back to part 2 of my North Korea video diary. So let's jump straight back into it. Day number 2 of 3 was all about travelling from one landmark to the next and taking lots of pictures and learning about the history of the country. So it was a really early morning and I was feeling a little bit fresh from the night before, and we got on the coach and we started travelling to the different locations. Now, what I noticed throughout most of the places that we went is that although we were in the capital of the country, it was a very sparse place. There weren't many people there, and although there were people there, it wasn't what you would expect for a capital city. Normally when you go to places like London, or if you go, well, anywhere really, it's going to be full of tourists, full of just normal locals walking around. It was the exact opposite in Pyongyang. We had lots of space around us, you were never bumping into people. You were walking past people, but it was so easy to avoid them, it wasn't packed at all. And it was the same for the cars. There were very little and very few cars on the main roads, and although the road system was quite big, there was lots of kind of motorways and two-lane systems for cars, it wasn't really necessary. Although we did go past a few cars, we were never worrying about traffic jams or anything like that. What we did notice is that a lot of locals were using public transport, so there were lots of things like trams, there were people using bikes, bicycles that is, and very few people using cars. And the cars that we did see, they were, to put it gently, they were quite old-fashioned, quite old cars. You didn't see any sports cars, you didn't see anything flashy, they were all quite old. Another thing I noticed was that litter was virtually non-existent. Everywhere we went in the capital, which were a lot of the big statues, a lot of the places that glorified the country or the great leaders, they were pristine. They were all very clean, all the paths were spotless, and I mean spotless. There was no chewing gum that was smeared into the pavements, there was no gooky stuff in between all the slabs. It was perfect. And in fact there was no bins around, so I'm guessing if you had litter you took it with you to take back home. Now, I'm not oblivious to it all. I know that Pyongyang is essentially a postcard picture of what they want the world to see their country as, so it's in their best interest to make it look as clean as possible. So, you know, I was aware of that, but they did a very good job at making the whole place very clean. Talking about the people there, talking about the locals, although we did see quite a few, they were always very hesitant of us, and they never approached us. They would always just walk by as if they were carrying on with their lives, not even bothering about us. However, you would always see them take a glimpse at us. They'd always be looking out the corner of their eye, and then if you looked at them, they would look away. It was quite a surreal experience in that regard. And when we did get a chance to get closer to them, it was always at the different landmarks. We would always find a lot of very nicely dressed people at the landmarks, and we would also notice a lot of school children coincidentally being at the landmarks at the same time as us in their very nice school clothes. They were all very nicely dressed, everyone dressing exactly the same, and unlike the adults, they were a little bit more curious, and they were always looking over, smiling, and sometimes giving a quick wave, and sometimes we would wave back and they would giggle, and it was quite nice to be able to do that. And some of our group actually went up to a lot of the kids and said, "Can we have our photos of you, or have photos with you?" And most of the kids were happy to do that. However, we were told before the trip that if we were to go into the country and just go up to anyone in the street and ask for the photos, we were advised not to do that. And it ended up being the case where one of our guys tried taking a picture of someone walking by and they were covering up the face, as you can see. And it kind of makes sense really. If you're walking down the street, no matter where you are, in your hometown or in your home city, and people's there taking pictures of you, you're going to feel quite offended, and your personal space is being intruded on. So I can completely see why they were a little bit shocked by that.
This is Grand People's Study House. Built in a Korean national architectural style, the 10-story house comprises 10 buildings. It was opened in April 1982. It can admit over 12,000 people every day and house 30 million books.
In the building, which is absolutely beautiful, we went in. It was huge. There was lots of really nice structures in there. There was lots of nice statues of leaders and whatnot. But when you actually got to go into some of the side rooms, which had lecture rooms where we actually got to walk in and get to see a live lecture of Korean people sitting down and listening to someone talk to them about a certain topic. We didn't find out what topic it was, because obviously it was in Korean and I don't know Korean very well, but it was just nice being able to see that. Quickly after that, we went down to the music appreciation room, which was quite a surreal room. It was empty when we went in there, and there was a lot of tables, and on all the tables there were the famous boom boxes from the 80s, and to the side of that there were a big extensive range of CDs, and the CDs had a wide range of genres. There was even Madonna, there was I think Bryan Adams and Bruce Springsteen, and apparently people could come here whenever they wanted and listen to the music that was approved by the state. I don't know if that is actually accessible to the whole city, but we were allowed in there, and there weren't any locals there at all. There was also a piano at the front, which I had a very quick play of, and I managed to record one of the tour group playing the piano. We also got to visit the History Museum. Now, this museum was absolutely huge. It's a huge building, but in front of the building they had a display.
Displayed in the military arms exhibition are weapons seen by the great President Kim Il-sung during the past Fatherland Liberation War, and 35 pieces of combat equipment of 23 kinds which performed great feats during the war.
It was quite a surreal experience that they actually wanted to show this off. We had a separate tour guide. She was dressed up in all of the military uniforms, and she walked us through everything, and she was talking as if she was really proud to show us the stuff that they captured years and years ago, whereas I presume, you know, if it was in England we might have one or two items on display that we had captured, but these were very, very determined to show us their strength. And just before we went into the actual museum, we went to the other side, which had a river running by it, and in the river was a captured American warship.
The United States admitted the espionage acts of the Pueblo and signed an apology of its government to the Korean people, which assured that it did not intrude into the territorial waters of the DPRK in the future. As a result, resolute measures were taken to expatriate the arrested spies. Displayed in the spy ship are the intelligence apparatuses and historical evidences during its capture by the Korean People's Army,
where we got to see all of the communications materials and machines that they had, and we got to see how the Koreans had captured the warship. We even got to see all the bullet holes on the walls from all the fighting that took place, so that was quite surreal. After that we went into the History Museum, and they had a very, very extensive history on their country. The majority of it was trying to show their country in a good light, or an heroic light. They would never show any images or any caricatures of them in weakness, always being kind of the higher man in any situation. and it was quite surreal. At one point we saw a figure of a North Korean soldier with a gun with a knife on the end of it, and he was looking in a very heroic stance, very proud, and it was in the setting of like a big field with lots of fighting going on, and on the floor there was an American soldier, and he was depicted with lots of blood everywhere, looked defeated, and he was holding up his hand kind of saying, "No, I give up," to the North Korean. And that kind of image and that idea was spread across the whole of this history museum. Another interesting part of the museum was the final part of it. We went all the way up to the top of the building, and it was a massive circular room, and in the middle of the circular room we were sat on seats on a circular platform which slowly rotated, and on the walls, on the inside of the walls, it was essentially a big painting, and they used lights to tell a story about the Korean War. And it started off, we were pointing at a very nice large picture of fields basically, and slowly as we were moving along the pictures became more and more violent. We saw army men fighting with people, and the land getting destroyed, and planes coming in and getting bombed and things like that as the more you rotated around. It was a very unique way of telling a story and telling their version of events, so it was quite an experience. On the second day we had lots of different types of food. For lunch we were given a very similar meal to what we had on the previous day, where we had small dishes, things like pastas and different kinds of meat, and we were given a lot of that until we felt really full. We were given an optional extra, which we had to pay for. That was dog soup. Now, I know some people who would want to try that. For me personally, I have a lovely little dog, and I couldn't imagine the idea of having him in a soup, so I politely refused that. You know, you weren't forced to eat it, it was optional, and I believe most people give it a go. It was only me and John, my roommate, who decided not to, because he has a dog as well, and apparently it tasted like beef, and I did take a few pictures, but I definitely didn't want to try it. On the evening we went to a restaurant. It was quite a small restaurant, and we got to go to a room which had lots of small tables in it. On every table there was a heater, and the idea was we were given lots of raw duck meat, and we got to put that on the heater, and we cooked our own duck, as well as we were given lots of small dishes, things like pasta again, and lots of other Korean local food. It ended up being quite nice, and we got really full. However, the highlight from that actual meal wasn't the food. We got to experience Pyongyang's notorious electrical cutouts. They're famous for part of not only the city but the country just getting blackouts due to the unique way they are electronically set up in the country. And partway through the meal, everything went black, and for about 2-3 minutes before everything came back on, it was pitch black. And we all had a good laugh. We started singing along a few songs. It was quite funny.
This is the old home of the respected President Kim Il-sung at Mangyongdae. It is a historic revolutionary place. President Kim Il-sung, the father of socialist Korea, was born in the simple straw-thatched house on April 15, 1912, and spent his childhood here.
It was in a very remote place, and it took a while to get there. It was kind of like in the middle of a forest. It was very beautifully maintained. A lot of the grass was cut, and there was lots of flowers, and it looked like quite a stable-like area. And although it was nice, I got to experience being told off and getting wrong from the tour guides. It was probably about midday, and I was feeling a little bit dehydrated and quite warm, so I wanted to take a seat, and I wanted just to chill for a couple of minutes. So I went out of the stable area where it was all fenced off, and I sat down on the path where I thought I could just relax. 2 seconds later, scuttling along was one of the tour guides who looked at me in a very angry way and said, "You have to stand up now." And I thought, oh Christ, what have I done? Am I going to get in trouble again? Am I going to get the repercussions? Anyway, I stood up and he just turned around, walked back and started talking to someone, and that was it. Bricks were shot. Just to the side of the birthplace of the great leaders, there were a lot of military people wearing all of the uniforms, but they were clearly off duty, and we think they were planted there for us to see, even though we weren't allowed to take pictures, but it could have been that they were just hanging around there. And anyway, we got to see a North Korean tourist with, it was a woman and a little son, and they were taking pictures of themselves with the military. So that was quite interesting to see. And just past them was a watering well, where we could go up and we can actually drink a little bit from the well. And the story goes is that one of the great leaders went there, give it its blessing, and if you drink from there you get eternal life. And up to now that's holding pretty true. One of the highlights was going to see the Grand Monument on Mansu Hill. Now this is probably one of the most famous icons in North Korea, which is two of the previous great leaders' massive statues. I think it's a bronze statue, and they are absolutely huge. Pictures don't really do a good job of depth perception and how big things can be, but it was absolutely huge. Now, we were told that we needed, if we were going to take pictures of it, we needed to get the front of both statues in. We weren't allowed to cut off an arm or a head or a leg. It had to be with the full thing. Otherwise, we could risk getting our photos deleted.
This is the Grand Monument on Mansu Hill. The monument gives formative and artistic depiction of the immortal history of the revolutionary struggle waged by the Korean people under the leadership of the great Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il. It has bronze statues of the great Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il and larger sculptural groups depicting the anti-Japanese armed struggle and the socialist revolution and socialist construction on both sides of the statues.
When we were there, it was pristine. Everything was very clean. Everything was beautifully laid out. Coincidentally, we bumped into lots of school children who were wanting to come and pay their respects to the great leaders. They were wearing all the beautiful school costumes, and I feel as if they might have been planted there, but we could have just coincidentally bumped into them. Who knows? But one thing that we had to do, we had to pay respects ourselves. We had the option of buying flowers to lay at the bottom of the statue, which I didn't do, but many others did. But what we did have to do was line up in front of the two statues, and we had to bow. Now, we were told before the trip that we would have to respect their cultural norms and their certain ideologies and just go along with it. And if we could do that, then we'll be fine. And although I didn't really want to bow, I wasn't going to make a big fuss about it. I wasn't going to reject, because not only would that ruin my stay there, it would ruin everyone else's stay. So we just bowed, and then we were quickly on our way.
1, 2, 3.
My favourite structure was the monument to the workers of North Korea. And this is a three-part structure which has three hands, one of them holding a hammer, another a sickle, and finally one holding a brush. And these represent the worker, peasant and intellectual that make up the party. It was built in 1995, and I think it just looks so different to every other structure that I've seen, not only in North Korea but in well, anywhere really. Another interesting structure was the Juche Tower. Now, I've probably pronounced that wrong, so I'm going to write it down here so you can try and pronounce it yourself. But the Juche idea is where man is free and he is the master of his own destiny. That's actual, yeah, I didn't make that up, and I don't know if they understand the irony with that and where they live, but that's apparently what it's for. What's interesting about the structure is that it's built of over 25,000 bricks, and it's over 170 metres tall, and I believe part of it's also concrete. And according to one of the members of my tour group, and that structure is the tallest concrete structure in the world. We actually got to travel up to the top of it, because in the middle of the structure is an elevator, and you can go all the way up to the top and you get a lovely view of the whole city. Now just below that we were looking down onto a river, and at the side of the river were a bunch of school students, yet again, because we've seen quite a lot of them, especially on this day. And I asked one of the tour guides why they were sat next to the river seemingly doing nothing, and he said, oh, they were doing a swimming competition. And we were thinking, that's very surreal, because they weren't actually doing anything, and we watched them for quite a long time and none of them moved. They were just sat there. I don't know why. Again, we think they were planted there just to make the place look a little bit more busy and to give us tourists a better idea of what they wanted their country to look like.
This is Pyongyang Metro. Pyongyang Metro is linking central districts of the city. Its lines stretch to all directions, east, west, north and south, from the center of the city to provide for the convenience of citizens in traffic. The stations of the metro are reminiscent of perfect underground palaces for a variety of their internal structure and beautiful decorations.
We travelled approximately 100 metres underground, and apparently the subway station also acts as a bunker for the people in case they get attacked. Now when we got onto the platform was absolutely breathtaking. Normally when you go to, let's say, the underground in London, it's just a few signs telling you where you need to be, and it's nothing else really. It's just a place for lots of adverts and to get from one place to the next. When you go on the platform in North Korea, it's really big. They have beautiful artwork in there. They had chandeliers in one of the platforms, and those chandeliers were in the shape of flowers, and very colourful ones. So that was really nice to see. Now we had to wait maybe 5-10 minutes for a tube to come along, and the carriages looked a little bit out of date, but when we got on them it was a pleasant ride, and in every carriage they had pictures of two of the past great leaders in every carriage, which was quite a surreal experience. And it was at this point where the cameraman who was filming us was starting to get his camera a bit too close in everyone's face, and well, as you can see, I didn't really like it. Now we got to go to another platform straight afterwards, and it was in the very same condition as the first. It was very clean, it was very well polished. There were people going on the tube system, but it wasn't as busy as you'd expect in London or in anywhere else. It was just very relaxed. And we also got to see a nice structure, a nice statue of a Korean person. I don't know if it was actually gold, I don't suspect it was, but it was painted like gold, so it was very pretty. We then got back on the tube, went back to the first platform, and then we went back on the overground onto our next location. I don't suspect that all of the platforms are in that good of a condition, but the two that we went to were very nice. During the afternoon we went to see a show in a big performance arena. Now this performance arena could hold a lot of people, and there was a massive performance space, and the building was absolutely huge. It was really tall, and what we got to see were a few entertainers. We got to see a little bit of a comedy act. We got to see a lot of gymnastic people and a lot of those doing different tricks. And at the side there was a live band who were accompanying the visuals, and they were playing along to the performers as they were entertaining us. And I've got to admit, the performances, they were world class, and I literally mean that. They were fantastic. A lot of the gymnastics, they were used without any safety nets. A lot of it took place high up, so they were elevated really high, and if they made any mistake they'd have had a huge fall, they'd have broken bones, potentially died, but it went all to perfection. It was brilliant. It was breathtaking. The best part was a solo gymnastic person who, it was just a rope dangling from the ceiling, and she climbed up halfway, maybe, I don't know, 50 meters high, and she attached the rope around one of her legs. But what was very unique about what she did, she had a pole and she put it on her lip and she was balancing this pole, but on the pole there was a metal tray, and on that metal tray were 2 glasses of wine, and she was balancing all of that on her lip whilst dangling 50 meters high on this piece of rope, all on one leg. To add to that, she started swinging back and forth, gaining momentum and just dangling all the way across the whole hall. It was breathtaking how she could do that. She then, out of nowhere, pulled out juggling balls and started juggling whilst balancing all of that. And then with her other free leg, she had a kind of like a frisbee disc with a hole in the middle. She put it around her leg and started spinning that whilst juggling, whilst balancing, whilst spinning. It was incredible. Now, it was getting quite late at this point. It was around 8, 9 o'clock. It was very dark, and they said they had one more surprise for us. They took us to a theme park in Pyongyang in North Korea. I did not expect to go to a theme park, and the good thing was, it was actually quite a good theme park. It was very small. There were maybe 5, 6 rides, but they basically opened it for us. And there were lots of Korean people in there. But if we went up to a ride and we thought, oh, we want to go to it, we were let through to the front. I felt quite bad doing that, but that's what the tour guide said, and the Korean people just got out the way. Coincidentally, a lot of the Korean people wanted to go to the dodgems. There was loads of Koreans around there. The two that I went on, the first one was a mini roller coaster, but you were put in cages. There was 4 people per cage, and the cage then went flat, so you were facing kind of head on, and you went around this roller coaster. It was really fast, really exciting, and that was the first one. The second was, you've probably seen this in lots of other theme parks, but it's like a massive pivot, and on the pivot there's a big circle and people are attached around the circle, and that starts spinning around, and then that starts going around while you're spinning, and it gets really high, and that was really good as well. Some of the things that I might have missed out in the previous part of this video, we had 3 tour guides that accompanied us throughout the whole trip. The first one was the main spokeswoman. She talked all the way on the coach trips about where we were going by and all the places we were going to, give us a lot of information, and she even cracked a few jokes whilst we were there. A few of them I can't even mention in case any kids are watching, but she was really funny, she was really friendly, and she was a good laugh. The second person was a little bit more serious. He was very tall, and he was there to look after any money issues. So if we had to pay for any optional extras, like a few extra drinks, or if we wanted to go on the theme park rides, we had to pay him extra money, so he was there for that. Also, he was there to sort out the logistics of getting from one place to the next on time. The third person was probably the most reserved. He never spoke to the group as an entirety or as a group. He talked to people individually, and he mainly talked to me. This was the person who, on the first night of us drinking, he and I bonded over a few drinks, and he told me about his wife and children. And I noticed when we were walking from the coach to a certain landmark, he would come up to me and he would just talk to me about how I'm doing and if I'm enjoying the trip. And he would do it to me, he would come up to me more than the other people, which was quite nice. So that's the end of my video diary from my trip to North Korea. Thank you very much for watching it. It was really fun to make, and if you enjoyed watching it, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it. Now, what I'm thinking about doing is making a third and final North Korea video. If there's anything that I might have missed out, or if there's any questions that you have that I might not have talked about and you want answering, maybe something about something I specifically did, or maybe you're interested in going to North Korea and you don't know where to start or what's a good website to do it through, then leave loads of questions in the comment section below. I'm also on Twitter and Facebook. You can get me on those, and what I'll do, I'll make a big video and put all of that together so you can get a better idea about North Korea. So folks, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you later.